Do you trust science? What if, all of a sudden, it showed you something that goes against everything you've ever believed to be true? Something so profound, so out of the ordinary, that it challenges everything you've been taught about the universe, about life, about human existence itself. Imagine if a real, legitimate, proven scientific discovery had been made, but never revealed to the public. Imagine if concrete evidence was being hidden behind technical reports and incomprehensible terms, just to keep you from learning the truth. Because what you're about to hear now has been deliberately silenced, and not by accident. One of the greatest discoveries of the modern era, made with the help of one of the most powerful instruments ever created by humanity, was simply hidden, erased from the headlines, ignored by the major news networks. Why? What could be so threatening? What was captured that could not be shared with the public? There is something behind this silence, a veil of censorship covering the truth. And that truth is now beginning to emerge. We are talking about proof. Concrete evidence recorded by cutting-edge technology, capable of seeing what no other telescope has ever seen. It is not speculation. It is not a conspiracy theory. It is real data, a verified record that points to something that should not exist, at least not according to what current science accepts as possible. And yet it is there, recorded, analyzed, and hidden. The images exist. The data has been captured. But for some reason that no one dares to explain, all of this was locked away behind closed doors, far from the knowledge of the population. Few had access. Even fewer dared to speak out. But now, this information is beginning to leak out. Fragments, excerpts, pieces of what was hidden for so long are beginning to appear. And with them, the chance to see what was revealed behind the silence. A discovery that could change the course of our history, the way we see the universe and our own place in it. And it all started with a transmission, a seemingly ordinary data reading that ended up exposing something much bigger than anyone imagined. An anomaly, a signal. A pattern so unusual that even scientists hesitated to talk about it. And it was all recorded by a single source. An instrument so powerful, so precise, that what it picks up cannot be ignored. The truth has been revealed. And now you will see with your own eyes how it all began, when the James Webb Telescope pointed to the stars and saw something that should never have been recorded. The James Webb Space Telescope is not just a scientific tool. It represents the pinnacle of human technology applied to cosmic exploration. After decades of development and billions in investment, Webb was launched into space with a mission that goes far beyond simple stargazing. It is designed to reveal what lies hidden in the depths of the universe. Its ultra-advanced sensors operate in the infrared, allowing it to see beyond what the human eye can see, piercing through cosmic dust, gas, and even time. That's because Webb doesn't just observe the present, it literally peers into the past, capturing the light emitted by galaxies and stars that were born billions of years ago. But its true power lies in something even more intriguing: the search for signs of life. With its ability to analyze the atmospheres of distant exoplanets, James Webb was programmed to detect chemical signatures that, here on Earth, are directly linked to the existence of living organisms. It's as if we were searching, with surgical precision, for any sign that we are not alone in the universe. And it was precisely during one of these, apparently routine, searches that something unexpected appeared. A signal, an unusual atmospheric signature, a chemical echo coming from a distant planet that, according to the data collected, not only raises questions, but practically screams for attention. These records, however technical they may seem, hide behind their graphs and spectra a possible monumental truth. And here is the key point. This telescope is not just any instrument. It is the most sensitive, the most precise, the most capable of seeing what is hidden between galaxies and black holes, between the silence of space and the frontiers of the unknown. What it saw was unusual, inexplicable, an anomaly. And we are not talking about a glitch or interference. We are talking about a clean, consistent, and extremely specific reading, something that should not be there, but is. And it was precisely this moment, this small deviation in the middle of an ordinary mission, that set in motion a sequence of events that no one expected. As the data was processed and the images were analyzed, certain patterns began to repeat themselves, patterns that did not match any known natural phenomenon. And as this information was confirmed, internal alarms began to sound. Confidential reports began to circulate among select groups, and suddenly, what was just another space scan turned into one of the greatest enigmas ever recorded. And it was all hidden there, in the numbers, in the graphs, in the technical records, waiting to be decoded. But what exactly was detected? And why did this particular reading begin to cause discomfort among the scientists involved? You are about to learn how, in the midst of the cosmic silence, something unexpected revealed itself and began to challenge everything that science thought was impossible. During a recent observation, the James Webb detected something that shouldn't be there. While scanning a distant region of the constellation Leo, the sensors captured the presence of an exoplanet that, at first glance, seemed ordinary, like so many others already mapped. But when analyzing its atmosphere with the ultra-precise infrared spectrometers, the data revealed a combination of gases that simply does not make sense within what we know about planetary physics. Methane in very high concentrations, coexisting with carbon dioxide and an almost total absence of ammonia, a composition that, here on Earth, only occurs when there is active biological life. But that wasn't all. The planet was emitting unusual thermal signals, as if it were selectively producing heat at specific points, suggesting possible energy control or unnatural activity. In addition, a series of light pulses were detected, appearing at regular intervals, forming patterns that seemed to repeat themselves with a precision that nature would hardly produce by chance. These pulses did not resemble any stellar phenomenon ever recorded. They were intermittent, organized lights, as if they were transmissions, or worse, as if they were codes. And once again, this was confirmed in cross-observations carried out days later, ruling out any possibility of error or equipment failure. But what really intrigued scientists was the persistence of these signals. They did not disappear over time. On the contrary, they intensified, as if somehow they had realized that they were being observed. A reactive behavior, which makes no sense in inert or purely physical phenomena. The planet, which until then had been just a dot among billions, now stood out as a possible source of intelligence. And this possibility was enough to set off a red alert behind the scenes of scientific institutions. Because if these signals are indeed artificial, then we are not just talking about life. We are talking about consciousness, intention, a deliberate attempt at communication. Immediately, the records began to be reviewed in silence. The images were removed from public databases. What had previously been freely available for consultation began to require restricted authorizations. Some files disappeared, others appeared modified, and all of this, coincidentally, after this energy pattern had been identified. What James Webb captured cannot be classified as an error. It is not noise. It is not a coincidence. It is a precise, logical, and repetitive sequence of signals coming from a region that, until recently, had been ignored. And in light of this, scientists were forced to face an uncomfortable question, one that changes paradigms and shakes certainties. If nature does not explain it, and if the data is real, then who or what is behind this intelligent activity that silently pulses from the depths of the universe towards Earth? What makes it all the more disturbing is not just the fact that we have detected unusual signals coming from a distant planet, but the exact content of those signals and what they reveal about their origin. The chemical composition observed there simply should not exist naturally. And what is even more frightening is that this exact atmospheric combination, meticulously analyzed and confirmed by multiple readings from the James Webb Telescope, only occurs, as far as scientific knowledge can tell, when there is active life at work. That's right, this specific mix of methane, carbon dioxide, and the absence of ammonia is typical of fully functioning biological processes. And this pattern, here on Earth, is directly linked to the actions of living organisms, such as plants, bacteria, and even humans. There is currently no solid theory that explains how an environment can generate this kind of atmospheric equilibrium without the intervention of life forms. No known geological process would be capable of maintaining this stable composition. This alone would be enough to reshape all our astrobiological models. But it doesn't stop there. The way these elements are distributed, the exact proportion between them, suggests more than just coincidence. It suggests maintenance, adaptation, intelligence, as if something on that planet were deliberately controlling the environment, with purpose and intent. And this is what leaves scientists completely unanswered. Science is based on patterns, on repetitions, on natural causes that explain the observed effects. But in this specific case, the effects are clear, documented, measured with extremely high precision, and the cause remains completely unexplained. It's as if we were facing an alien biological system operating with rules that we don't yet understand. And if there is something that researchers themselves are beginning to admit, even behind the scenes, it is that this discovery completely escapes the margins of what we consider possible. The reaction in the laboratories was immediate. Heated discussions, attempts to reproduce the data in simulations, frantic searches for alternative explanations, all failed. What we have in our hands is not an error. It is not a technical artifact, and it is definitely not a common phenomenon. What we have is an anomaly that carries a living signature, almost as if that planet were trying to communicate with us in the only way we know how, showing that there something breathes, something consumes, something transforms, something exists. And from the moment this possibility was considered, a new fear took hold of the scientific community. Because if this composition only exists on Earth when there is life, then what was captured by that telescope could be the confirmation that we are no longer facing a theoretical possibility, but rather a real, active, and inexplicably alive presence in a remote point of the universe. And the most frightening thing was not just the discovery itself, but what happened afterwards. Or rather, what didn't happen. Because, strangely, few media outlets dared to report what had been detected. No newspaper front pages, no highlights on major portals, no urgent calls on the world's main news channels. What should have been a global headline, something that would change the course of modern science and the history of humanity itself, was treated with inexplicable silence. And this is where the inevitable question arises, the same one that is beginning to be asked in independent forums and alternative research groups in channels that dare to go beyond the official discourse. Why aren't they talking about this? The discovery was real, confirmed, documented, recorded by one of the most reliable pieces of equipment science has ever produced. And yet, instead of making headlines as a scientific revolution, it was buried, hidden under layers of bureaucracy, silenced by technical protocols, and archived in databases that no one else has access to. Researchers who tried to explore this material in more depth reported files disappearing, access blocked, and even changes to the data available to the public. Information that was previously open now requires levels of authorization that few have. Some images have disappeared. Others have been replaced by versions without details, as if they had been edited to not reveal anything compromising. And all of this happened in record time, as if there was already a contingency plan, as if someone or some structure already knew that this could happen and was prepared to hide it. Because when the truth threatens to break through the veil of ignorance, what is usually done is not to deny it. It is to stifle it, discreetly, silently, in an organized and strategic way. Thus, the public remains oblivious, believing that the universe out there is just an immense void without answers, while between the lines of official science, a gigantic revelation is kept under absolute secrecy. This kind of silence does not happen by chance. It is not a simple technical failure that is being hidden. What is being hushed up is something that goes beyond scientific logic. It goes beyond political interests. It touches the heart of human existence itself. Because if this information becomes public, it changes everything. It questions beliefs. It overturns certainties. It shakes structures. And perhaps that is why silence has become the most effective weapon in this game. But even in the best designed silence, there is always a crack, a noise, a leak. And it is precisely through this crack that fragments of the truth began to escape, which, even under layers of silence and censorship, insist on reaching those who still have the courage to seek what is really being hidden. And in the face of this absolute silence, questions that can no longer be avoided inevitably arise. What, after all, is happening on this mysterious planet? What explains this atmospheric combination that only exists where there is life? And why do these light emissions follow such precise patterns, almost like codes? As data leaks out, even if in fragments, independent researchers, astrobiologists, and theorists begin to raise hypotheses. The most moderate suggests that we are dealing with microbial life, simple forms of organisms that, even so, would be enough to shake modern science. After all, finding any type of life outside of Earth would already be a revolution in itself. But this theory does not explain the pulses of light, nor the localized thermal signals that seem to respond to stimuli. So another hypothesis is beginning to gain traction behind the scenes. What if we are not just looking at life, but rather intelligence? Technological signals emitted by an advanced civilization that, for some reason, decided to reveal itself, or perhaps that never wanted to be discovered. This possibility, although still treated with caution in traditional scientific circles, finds echo in real data, in spectra that show emissions of stable, rhythmic, purposeful energy. What if these pulses are forms of communication? What if we have been observed for longer than we imagine? And like every uncomfortable revelation, a third line of thought also emerges, more obscure, but one that cannot be ruled out. What if all this is the result of an experiment, not an alien one, but an Earth one? Secret technologies, out of reach of the public, that are being tested in distant regions of the universe with equipment like James Webb's own. Tests that should not be seen, but that ended up being captured by accident. Experiments conducted by agencies, governments, or entities that operate in the shadows, far from any public control, whose objectives are unknown, and whose results are now beginning to leak. Each of these theories, however different they may seem, shares the same point of origin: the existence of a real signal, recorded by unquestionable equipment and hidden with a haste that reveals much more than the data itself. Because when there is so much effort to hide something, it is because that something has power to change narratives, of breaking boundaries, to break down walls between science, spirituality, technology, and conspiracy. And it is in this dangerous intersection between the evidence gathered, the hypotheses raised, and the silences imposed that we begin to understand that we may be on the brink of the greatest revelation in modern history, one that can no longer be contained or ignored. Ancient texts already spoke of signs coming from the heavens. Even before telescopes, even before modern science, entire civilizations dedicated their lives to observing the firmament, not only with curiosity, but with reverence. For ancient peoples, the sky was not just a blanket of stars. It was an open book of divine messages, a portal between the visible and the invisible world. And now, in light of what James Webb captured, these ancient prophecies take on new meaning. The Bible, for example, is full of passages that speak of messengers coming from on high, of heavenly lights, of trumpets that would sound when a new time was about to begin. What if these signs that technology allows us to see today are, in fact, the same manifestations described millennia ago? The Mayans, with their astonishing astronomical precision, spoke of the return of the gods in cosmic cycles that would coincide with unusual celestial events. The Sumerians recorded on clay tablets the presence of beings who descended from the heavens in fiery ships, bringing knowledge and warning. Hindu scriptures describe vimanas, flying vehicles that cross the sky with technologies that would still be considered impossible today. What if what we now call scientific anomalies are simply modern reinterpretations of phenomena that the ancients already knew about but described in different words? Coincidences are piling up, and the line between science and spirituality is beginning to blur. What was once treated as legend or myth now finds echoes in the data captured by our most advanced instruments. It is as if the past were trying to warn us, to prepare us for something that only now do we have the technical capacity to understand. The lights that pulsed in the sky thousands of years ago, interpreted as divine signs or supernatural manifestations, are now detected by sensors that confirm their existence, their frequency, their intelligence. What the ancients saw as manifestations of the gods, we are beginning to see as technologies that defy even the known laws of physics. And perhaps that is why so many of these ancient texts have been ignored, undervalued, or simply forgotten. Because if confirmed, they would not only give context to what is now being discovered, but would also reveal that these truths have always been before us, hidden under the guise of faith, symbolism, and tradition. Science is beginning to catch up with what ancient civilizations already seem to know, and this opens up a new and disconcerting perspective on what we are really witnessing in the heavens. What if we are not alone? Or worse, what if they've been watching us for centuries? This is not just a science fiction question, but a deep concern that has accompanied humanity since its beginnings. If today we have enough technology to capture signals that cross the universe and reveal the existence of intelligent patterns outside of Earth, what guarantees that these intelligences are not already aware of our presence long before we have any conditions to detect them? The James Webb Telescope may have been the first human instrument capable of clearly seeing what, to these potential observers, had long been obvious. Us, the Earth, our entire civilization, as a visible, monitorable, and predictable point amidst the chaos of the cosmos. Now think, what if these signals we are detecting are not a call, but a response? A reaction to our progress, our curiosity, our persistent gaze outside the atmosphere? For millennia, we believed that we were at the center of everything. We created religions, sciences, and philosophical systems based on the premise that we are unique. But each new discovery, each planet with habitable conditions, each energy emission with a logical pattern, dismantles this idea little by little, with surgical precision. It is no longer a question of faith. It is a question of data. And the data is telling us that something out there is moving, something that may know us better than we imagine. If the chemical composition of that planet indicates life, if the light pulses follow a coded structure, if the thermal patterns suggest controlled activity, then the hypothesis that we are being observed is not only plausible, but almost inevitable. And that changes everything. It changes how we see ourselves, how we understand our origin, our destiny, our role in a universe that, contrary to what we thought, may be full of diverse, conscious, organized intelligences. Civilizations that perhaps never lost control over their own history, like us. Beings that do not wait to be found, but decide when, how, and to whom they appear. This possibility opens up a new dimension of reflection. It is no longer a question of, are we alone, but rather of, why now? Why is this evidence emerging at this precise moment in our history? Why is it only now with this specific technology that we are able to capture that which has perhaps always been there observing us, studying us, evaluating us as if we were following from afar the evolution of a species that barely understands its own place in reality? What if, instead of seeking the unknown, we are being led step by step into a controlled revelation, where each discovery is released at the exact moment we are ready to accept it? If what James Webb saw is confirmed, everything could change in a matter of years. And this sentence is not an exaggeration. It is not a dramatic effect to capture your attention. It is the literal expression of the impact that this discovery could have on our world. Imagine waking up one day and discovering that everything you know about the origin of life, about our place in the universe, about the idea that we are a cosmic exception, has simply fallen apart. Imagine governments being pressured to answer questions they have been avoiding for decades, religions having to reinterpret millennia-old passages in light of a new reality, and entire societies facing the unknown, no longer as a hypothesis, but as an undeniable fact. This confirmation will not only be a scientific moment, it will be a turning point for the ages, a new page in the history of humanity. And the most disturbing thing is that the first signs of this change are already here, documented, recorded, but carefully hidden from the general public. Everything indicates that we are facing an indirect contact, a cosmic warning, a presence that does not want to be ignored, but also does not want to reveal itself completely. Yet, something or someone is testing the limits of our perception, as if probing how much we can endure before the truth becomes inevitable. The pieces are falling into place with uncanny precision. The altered atmospheres, the energy signals, the logical patterns, the correlations with ancient prophecies, the silence of the authorities. It all adds up to a puzzle that points in one direction. We are no longer speculating. We are observing, recording, and perhaps, without realizing it, we are also being observed. And if that is indeed the case, if this silent exchange has been going on for longer than we imagine, then it is not just about discovering something new, but about accepting that the unknown already knows everything about us. Do you think they are hiding something from us? After everything that has been revealed so far, it is impossible not to raise this question. So now I want to hear from you. Comment below. I want to know the truth. If you also feel that something big is being kept secret, your participation is essential for this subject to continue gaining strength and reaching more people. If you like the video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next content and leave your like. This helps a lot to continue spreading the truth. And now, click on the next video that is appearing on your screen, because in it I will show you another discovery that no one is talking about, but that can change everything you believe about our place in the universe.